Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to 2026. This is the Splash City Basketball Podcast, and I'm your host, Steve Hartman. I hope you and yours had a great break, had a great holiday, and you rang in the new year. You were able to celebrate, recharge, and hopefully take in some basketball. I took a few days off from creating episodes and social media content, but that doesn't mean I took time from the game of basketball. What a weekend. First weekend of 2026 was fantastic. Start with the Timberwolves. It was kind of a rocky lead up to the new year. They dropped 3 of 4 heading into 2026, but they did just complete a back-to-back sweep in Miami, and today, Sunday, the 4th, against Washington in DC. Two things stood out. First of all, Ant, he's averaging 30.8 points per game since returning from those 3 games he missed in December. Starting with that OKC game, he's just been on a tear. And Naz Reid put up 29 against the Heat. He had 33 against Chicago. And since the 4th of December, he's had at least 6 rebounds in 11 of their 14 games. So Naz Reid looking like the 6th man of the year that we know and love. Looking at the college game, huge win for Nebraska the other night, Friday. It was kind of a showdown game against Michigan State. I had talked about it on some previous episodes. Cornhuskers are for real. They knocked off number 9 Michigan State. They're undefeated, moving to 14-0. Rienk Mast was absolutely unconscious in the first half. Tom Izzo had to take numerous timeouts, yelling at his guys not to leave him. Their pick and pop game was just crushing the Spartans. But I thought Michigan State was going to make a run late and actually take the win. However, Fred Hoiberg, credit with about a minute to go, drew up a beautiful set. Mast, I don't think had made a field goal in the second half, but he went to him again. Mast buries a 3, and the Huskers hold on. Minnesota actually goes into Northwestern and wins for the first time since 2020. They were trailing for most of the second half, but really made a strong push. Takei Tyson came alive, hit a huge 3 late in the game at the end of the shot clock. Grayson Grove, huge again. Career high 12 points, all on dunks, 6 dunks. Langston Reynolds and Isaac Asama, the backcourt, with no Chauncey Willis now the rest of the year. Those two rebounded from a poor performance against Fairleigh Dickinson and played outstanding. Reynolds finished with 13 assists to lead the Gophers, who are now 2-1 in the Big Ten. Over in the Summit League, St. Thomas officially 1-0 after a 92-88 barn burner against Denver today. Denver coached by the former Morehead State Dragons head coach. Nick Janowski had 31. Tommies are dangerous, but I'm going to tell you, NDSU looks really tough as well. They moved to 2-0 in the Summit League. The Tommies have a tough 3-game stretch coming up at ORU, Oral Roberts down in Oklahoma, at UND in Grand Forks, and at North Dakota State in Fargo in the middle of January. At the end of the show today, I'm going to talk a little bit about my teams of the week. So I'm going to do my 4 classes of boys basketball teams of the week, and then my Northern Sun and my MIAC conference teams of the week as well. But before we get to that, today's main segment is an interview I recorded a couple days ago with a longtime friend of mine. He was in my wedding. I was in his. Great guy, great father, great coach, great person, Matt Askegaard. Matt is the head coach of the Barnesville Trojans boys basketball team. They were down at Howard Lake over the holidays, so I got to see him in person, see his team in person. He just brings a really unique look at team culture and has, we talk a little bit about what's shaped his coaching perspective. He actually was a ref in both high school and college, so he brings a unique perspective to the game. He also has some great book recommendations. So for any coaches or parents listening, highly recommend listening to this full segment. Go out and get those books that he recommends. But it's a great discussion. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today, I have a special guest with me. Very honored, very excited to talk to longtime friend. We were actually in each other's wedding, Matt Askegaard, head coach of the Barnesville Trojans. This is not going to be your typical, professional interview, if you can call anything I do professional, but just, really interested to hear what Matt says. We caught up a little bit the other day, and just, I think some of the things you brought up were just worth sharing with the listeners of this podcast. So Matt has led programs in ROTSE, girls side in Barnesville. Actually, one of the more interesting things I think that you've done is ref at the high school and college level. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Student of the game, father, lots of fun things to talk about. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. It's we connected as you said way back. It's funny how paths lead together and then you come to forks in the road and they intertwine. And no, I'm excited. I'm excited to do this. Follow a lot of other podcasts, including yours, and it's just fun to have conversation about everything, life, basketball, all of the above.
Well, I appreciate it. Again, we caught up a couple days ago. Matt's team, the Barnesville boys, were down at the Howard Lake Waverly Winstead holiday tournament, so we were able to catch up. We'll talk more about your current team and the Trojans going into the new year. But I wanted to start off with some of your, like, I don't know, introspective thoughts. Having coached for, what is it, 20 years now, over 20 years. Um, the refereeing part, I think, is something I want to get into, but like, let's just start with your journey and like maybe kind of what's shaped you and your coaching philosophy over these last 20 plus years.
Well, it's definitely changed. People are going to say that kids have changed. I really don't think kids have changed. It's talking the other day with you, and there's two types of coaches. There's the transactional, which is more of your old school, and then there's the transformational. And I learned under transactional, and I've turned into a transformational coach. I mean, there's probably still some aspects of transactional characteristics. But yeah, when you're 18, 19 years old and you start coaching freshman boys, you do that for 5 years, and you do it under a head coach that is a very transactional coach. You learn to yell a lot. You learn to not like officials. You don't know your exact why. It's more a competition, winning and losing. It's about the scoreboard. That creates a lot of stress, as you and I talked about before, because then if you're not winning, winning's hard, and if you're not
Hmm.
winning, um, what else is there? And doing the ninth grade boys for 5 years, working with you and Rotse for 2 years, and then coaching 6 years of girls basketball in Barnesville. It's my oldest boy, who is now in eighth grade, was one. He wasn't quite two yet, and it was tough. So I decided to get out of coaching, and the day that I got out of coaching, my uncle, who was an official, called me and said, "You're officiating next year," and I said, "Okay." And next thing you know, I did that for 12 years, both on the high school side and as you mentioned, the collegiate side and the Northern Sun, and it taught me a lot. Uh, Officiating, having my own children, and then my coaching my kids at the lowest level. Those are the three things that I think people should do before getting into coaching. And yeah, now here I am 4 years later. The boys' position opened twice. I didn't get it the first time around. Things happen for reasons. Continued to officiate for 2 more years. It opened again, and now here I am in my fourth year coaching boys again.
Yeah. I remember when you moved over to the officiating side, one of the things you mentioned was like you still get to be around the kids,
Yep.
teach the game, um, enjoy the environments, but maybe a little bit less stress on like practice time, being away, um, parents. And so, what were like your biggest takeaways, or like what did you love most maybe about officiating?
Well, you mentioned the time.
Hmm.
I mean, you don't get paid a whole lot, um, but it's getting better. Very similar to coaching, but you're still involved with the game. Um, you show up, you work a game. When the game's done, it's over. Maybe
Hmm.
you visit with your partners for 10, 15 minutes after that. Your best friends in the gym at the time. Your only friends in the gym at the time,
You're only,
usually. But it really taught me how to communicate effectively. Being able to bring coaches down that were really at a high level as far as getting fiery and not responding to comments, only to questions. That's one thing that I learned is, and that's what I do as a coach now. I'm not going to get, we're not going to, you got to be able to work with officials and yelling at them and um, you got to have conversations. So it taught me to effectively communicate better by asking questions. It got me more engaged with the rules. But yeah, the time when you show up and you work, you're done, it's over. Then you go on to the next game. Um, so that it was really enjoyable. Had some great partners, some great experiences, both at the high school and the collegiate level. I worked. I was really good at it. I was. I got in at the right time. I really enjoyed it. I worked a college playoff game before I did a high school state tournament, which
wow.
it's to get selected for those. It's the coaches that select it. So that was a big
Hmm.
honor to do that. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed that, and it taught me a lot.
And you, is it just one brother that refs, or do both your brothers ref?
Nope, just my youngest brother Mason.
Okay.
After I got
Yeah.
into it, he was just kind of no, I don't want to. And
Yeah.
the next year he got into it, and the last game that I officiated was AAA section championship with him, Mason, and Brady Solom, who does college women's and in the area. Unfortunately, those guys can't work my games, but I love working with those guys. When we walked into the gym, people knew the game was going to get taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
stuff was going to, everything from out of bounds, which some officials struggle with out of bounds, ain't going to lie, all the way to keeping your eyes on the shot clock, the RA. There's so many different rules that have changed the game in a good way, but it's put more pressure on officials, and there's a shortage of officials, just like there's a shortage of coaches. So everybody's got to work together, and nobody's trying to, screw anybody over. Um, but yeah, it's working with those guys was great and had a lot of fun doing it.
It's too bad that Mason can't ref one of your games because I would pay big money to see him tee you up.
Well, I don't know. In 3.5 years, I haven't. I would say I haven't been close.
No,
Some
I know.
people would say, but I was good for in my old days. I was good for at least two a year.
Yeah.
Um, but the way that the questions that I ask, I'm not always right. I'm not asking to
Mhm.
always be right, but to have those conversations and to because a lot of the things we do in practice, the walling up, the rules with the RA, primary defender versus secondary defender.
Yeah.
I if you want to be good at officiating, you got to study those things, and it's quick. One of the hardest things to
Hmm.
do is to be an official because it's boom. One of the easiest
Yeah.
officials to be is a football official because you can drop a flag later after the play and pick or you can pick up a flag, and
Right.
and that's nothing against football officials, but it's you have to
Yeah.
quick decision making just like the game of basketball.
Well, and in football, the fans are long way away from the field. They don't see everything. They can't. But basketball, you're on the top of the action. Um, just just for the listeners, Matt mentioned RA, restricted area, new thing there. Before we move on from the officiating, I have a couple of questions I want to ask. Hardest arena or environment or gym to officiate in?
As far as people on top of you, coaches to work with, all of the above.
Fans, yeah, just like the boundaries, and you can break it up high school and college if you want.
um well, I'll start college. So I was on the women's side for college, and think crazy thing about basketball, you've got different rules for men's and women's. In
Yeah.
my first year of doing college women's, what you're learning the rules. The next year they switched it from the two halves to four quarters. You've got media timeouts. You've got other little intricate rules, but going down to Northern State, their head coach at the time was a Bear. I can't remember his name right offhand, but he was a Bear. Beautiful place to play. Really some really cool venues. It was challenging. I would say that one as far as on the college side. On the high school side, Coach Cressup can be tough to work for. Um,
The Hive and Perm.
the Hive and Perm, playing against him as a high school player, and then officiating, and then coaching against him. So there's a lot of different elements that go into good teams. He knew his stuff. He knew outstanding coach, good person, great person. That would be a challenging one as well. I could talk about Coach Critchley at DGF. When he was coaching on the girls' side, and Coach Korf at Pelican on the girls' side as well. I remember working a couple semifinal games at Concordia. They're not. It's just fun environments.
Yeah.
Really good basketball, but really tough decisions to make. And one thing that I learned from my uncle, this goes back to we were down in Wheaton working a game. It was Wheaton and Ortonville. I think it was even before they were Border West, and it was basically for their conference championship. And my uncle's the R, and he could have made it to the Big Ten. But he chose to farm. He wasn't in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And I asked him before the game. I said, "Who do you got?" And he looked at me. He goes, or he asked me, I think. He said, "Who do you got?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go with the home team." And I said, "How about you?" And he goes, "I don't give a shit." And then that's the mindset that you have to have as an official. You don't care who wins. Excuse my language. You probably have to edit that, but it's the truth.
Oh no, that's staying in.
Yeah, but that's another thing that I learned and that was probably in my third or fourth year, still growing as an official. And you got to have that mindset is you really don't care. So
Right.
that kind of went off the path of your question. But just there's tough coaches, there's tough. I shouldn't say tough, but just challenging. So challenging
Yeah.
places to officiate, challenging coaches to work for. But ultimately, you got a job to do, and you do the best you can.
I love that you didn't give out a specific fan base, especially in the Heart of Lakes conference. Not you don't want to feed any of that when you go visiting. Yeah. All right.
There's some tough ones. There's some really tough ones.
Absolutely. Great conference. Um, Last question on officiating. What's the one rule every high school fan base misunderstands?
Traveling, traveling. It's that's the hardest call in basketball is traveling.
Are you talking like off the catch, or is it more like the slow step, the Euro, all that?
All of the above. All of the
Okay.
above. Craig Samuelson, Sammy, in our pregame, see, we're not calling travel unless Grandma on the top row calls it a travel. Guess who's calling the first travel of the game? Sammy's calling the first travel, and we're looking over at him, going, "But traveling's tough." You know, you
Yeah.
mentioned it, the Euro steps. Um, just because it looks goofy, some people think it's a travel, but as an official, you're thinking advantage, disadvantage. That's another thing. Brad Siliuson told me. Another outstanding official. I don't know if you remember Brad. If you saw Brad, really high level elite official, very knowledgeable of the game. Um, but you're officiating the defense and thinking like the offensive player, and you're thinking advantage, disadvantage. Chances are, if somebody's gaining advantage, they're probably breaking the rules. And in the game of basketball, the offensive player has the advantage because he's got the basketball and they know where they want to go. Defense
Right.
has an idea, but they don't know where they're going. So traveling, some would say block
Yeah.
charge. To me, it's traveling.
I did notice watching your game the other day, there was a couple travel calls and you had zero reaction. And I thought that was interesting. You know, not really like, and maybe you do other times, but
Yeah.
there's no like telling the player, here's what you need to do, because most of the times he was just playing fast and just caught it and ripped and went and just happened to travel and then 2 minutes later does the same thing and there was no call. So
Right. Well, that's just it. It's judgment. I mean, it's
right.
fast. I mean, and the game that we play, our style of basketball, which most basketball, it's number one, it's fun to play. Number two, it's fun to watch, is we play fast. And officials, it's hard. And sometimes those feet get going too quickly. Sometimes a travel that gets called a travel isn't a travel. So what do you do? I mean, it is what it is. You ask a question and you get a response, and you pass it on to your player, and that's all you can do.
Right. All right. So appreciate all that. That was super interesting. Hopefully the listeners find some value and humor in some of those stories. But I do want to move on from the officiating because that's just a small piece of your story. The other day we were talking about, learning and growth as you become a parent and just patience and things like that. And you mentioned a couple of specific examples of other coaches you're learning from, and then also like books. So just maybe talk about that a little bit and your learning curve as a coach and how you've taken some of these things and feel like you're a better coach today than you were 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, sure. No, I got to go back to that conversation that I had with Doug Brueggemann, Coach Brueggemann. We coached against each other. He was the head girls at Pelican when I was coaching girls of Barnesville. Two of his boys, Casey now, his oldest, is the head coach at Jamestown, and we were visiting at a wedding reception, and I was just bouncing some ideas off of him, and he turned me on to the book, The Culture System. He said, Casey, I think Casey was at either South Dakota or South Dakota State as the director of basketball operations. He said, this is what they're reading. You need to check it out. I'll send you a copy. Well, this is going into my first year of coaching boys again. And I was trying to find a different purpose rather than the scoreboard being the number one thing, because we're competitive. Don't get me wrong, the scoreboard is important. I mean, it's a measuring stick, but it's not everything. And he said, you got to check this book out. It's called The Culture System by J.P. Nerbum. And I read it. You can use it for athletics. You can use it in life in general, business, whatever it might be. And in a nutshell, I used to hand out to my players a handbook about that thick, which I'd never remembered anything. So if I can't remember anything in that handbook, what are my players going to remember? And now it's down basically to a half a sheet of paper with a mission statement, vision, goals, non-negotiables, core values. In the book, Steve Kerr's in there, a lot of really good people that have used not necessarily his book, and that's how he's developed it, but just different philosophies. And that's our foundation. We've had a lot of situations come up, and I shouldn't say a lot, but some, if we didn't have what we have in place, and I say we as a program, but more importantly, my assistant coaches, Adam Tonsfeld and Justin Haugen, who are outstanding, not just coaches, but people, to buy into what my ideas were and to just reinforce of what we do. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because even in the 4 years, some of the things that have come up within our program, if we didn't have that foundation of creating better young men, is basically our mission statement, I probably wouldn't be coaching again. So it makes it challenging. It gives you something to go back on. So it gives you your why. It gives you more of a purpose than the scoreboard.
Right. And I think that would apply to any age, any sport, anything, right?
100%, 100%.
To just remember what you're doing this for. Like, why am I coaching fourth grade softball? Why am I coaching Mites hockey or whatever it is?
Well, and everything that we did or do is relationship based. I mean, at the time when my first head coaching job, when we started working together, I was 26 years old. It wasn't relationship based. How can I get these kids to buy into this type of defense or offense or whatever we're doing if I don't know the kids, and not knowing them as basketball players, but as people? I know it sounds really cheesy and it sounds really easy, but it's you are what you emphasize, and having those conversations, which Just little check-ins, before practice, during practice, and not even about basketball, just about school and whatever else it is, what's going on. We care about our players, and I'm not saying other coaches don't, but our guys truly know that we care about them and we want the best for them, not just as basketball players, but more importantly as people. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think we talked about this the other day, but as you age and you reflect and you become a parent,
Hmm.
I think some of this also um, comes about naturally, right? Like you think about things differently, you value things different, you value your time, your relationships.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great stuff in books and other coaches, but some of it is just like getting older and realizing, hey, I made mistakes, or what kind of person or parent or coach do I want to be, and being able to put the time in to learn and grow and not just be static and do things the way you've always done them.
Oh, 100%. I mean, when I started coaching again after, gaining a different perspective from the experience that we have in our life, I apologize to many former players. I've apologized to officials that I obviously
Rated.
well, I did. And they would come back and say, "Oh no, you were fine. You were fine." No, I wasn't fine. I wasn't good at what I thought I was good at it, but I wasn't good at coaching and being relationship based compared to where I am at now in my life. And you're absolutely correct, with the officiating, having my own children and raising, my oldest is an eighth grader. I've got a sixth grade daughter and now a fourth grade son. And then the third thing that I talked about is, coaching their teams at the lowest level, is teaching kids in second, third grade how to play a very, very challenging game. I remember getting mad as a high school coach before, because a kid couldn't read a screen. Well, we didn't do a very good job of teaching it probably. So how can I get mad at a kid for not knowing something that I haven't taught? So, and as an educator of now of 20 years, that's yeah, it's a lot of self-reflection. If you don't self-reflect, what can I do better? How can I make the situation better? Um, you're not going to get better. Self-reflection, and that's what we've done, as myself as a coach and as coaches, as an official. That's what officiating taught me too, is self-reflecting. What can I do better in these situations? Um, makes you a better person, and makes, hopefully, now being a head coach is creating better young men, especially in the world that we have today.
Well, good on you. I mean, this is great, and this is why I love you, man. Like this is so good. You did mention another book the other day, The Well-Intentioned Parents. Can you briefly talk about that
So,
as well?
so Dr. John Tower, head coach at St. Thomas, they're called WASP. I was a WASP. I'm probably still a WASP, and I'm trying to get better at that. And my 22-year-old assistant coach, Adam Tonsfeld, told me about this book. So they're well-intentioned, overly involved sports parents. I highly recommend that book for everybody. It's a short read. I need to go back and read both those books because I think there's always things that you can continue to learn, but it just gives you a different perspective. He talks about Joe Mauer. Joe Mauer's in there. It kind of goes back to the intrinsic motivation. As young kids, you want to give them a good experience. That's what kids are going to remember. They're not going to remember, the zigzag drill. They're not going to remember, just, things like that. But and that was one of my biggest challenges in the summertime, is how can I get kids to work on their game outside of the season? Well, you have to get them to enjoy it. And why do kids quit? Well, the game's not fun. Well, what's the definition of fun? Why don't you enjoy? Why is there no joy? That's one of our core values in our program, is joy. So where do kids lose the joy of playing a game that they grow up loving and enjoying playing? Um, so that's another good read. Um, and we could talk about his X's and O's. We do a lot of the things, and just a good communicator. I think he's got his doctorate in psychology, motivation, all those types of things. So again, learning from different people as well, and another really good book.
Yeah. I mean, Johnny Tower is a great example of just a transformational coach, because what things work at D3 work at D1, as you're seeing now with a very successful this year, favorites to win their league. But the only thing that changes is probably the level of athlete.
100%.
Everything else is probably the same.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So I want to pivot now to a few minutes just on your current team. We don't have to get into sharing trade secrets or anything, but 5-3, came down to Howard Lake, won that tournament. Close win in the championship game against James Carr, former player at Barnesville, right? And let's just talk about, what makes your team special, or like, what do you like about your team specifically? Earlier you mentioned playing fast.
Yeah, so we went into this year. We lost a really good group of seniors last year. I was able to coach conference MVP, who's now playing football at MSUM, Gannon Ballgreen. We were 4 points away from going to the state tournament last year. And again, unfortunately, the best team in basketball doesn't always win. I'm not going to take anything away from Pelican, but we were heavily favored to win that game. And we graduated a great group of seniors, some great leaders. I learned a lot from those guys. And then we turn around this year, one returning starter, another junior, now senior, who got a little bit of time, but basically a fresh group of guys. And we wanted to, with very little varsity experience, we wanted them to play very aggressive, to play fast, but more importantly, aggressively, and not to be basically afraid, because there's a reason there's different levels from varsity to JV to C team, Division 3, Division 2, Division 1. A lot of it's obviously the speed of the game and the physicality. And one thing that I compared them to going into summer was kind of like the Pacers of last year. Not a great, you lose the best player in the conference, but a lot of really good players, and one returning really, really good player, kind of a Tyrese Halliburton type. But to take those pieces, and we wanted to play very similar to the Pacers, where we're going to work guys up the court. And we're going to, it had to be hard work starting on the defensive end. And then hopefully that translated and carried over into our offense, which it has, and we've had some success. If you would have told me that we would be 5-3 right now before the season started, I could have said no. We could be 0-8, we could be 8-0. But I'm very happy with where we're at right now. Like you mentioned, we played Howard Lake, who's a very, very skilled basketball team. Coach Carr does a nice job with those guys. James was a Barnesville grad. I was the ninth grade coach. I never coached him because I think he moved. He's got Barnesville roots. He moved his sophomore, junior year. Don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, we're kind of undersized, but the kids work extremely hard. They really do, and I'm not just saying that because all kids work hard, but they really do. They buy into everything that we've put in front of them. They're high IQ guys, but they're the first group of guys that when I took over the program that we've started. So they're kind of a special group, and they've taken a jump every year too.
Yeah, the one thing I took away from watching you guys, and now that you say the Pacers, I totally see that. Very connected group, defensively and offensively. Especially on offense, you can see decision-making process much faster because there's the kids know where their teammates are going to be. They know if I cut here, this is what to expect. If I drive it here, my teammates will be there. And you had talked about this a little bit, no layup lines and warm-ups, practicing all of these types of scenarios and these attacks and where to fill and replace and those types of things.
Yeah, it's, again, I gotta go back to my assistant coach, Adam, and he's an all business guy. There's no wasted time. just our pre-practice stuff is just simple ball handling, some form shooting. But if we have time to work on something, so we thought, and we changed this probably, it was after we played West Central last year, had a tough loss. They've got a nice team. They were one win away from going to the state tournament. They lost to a tough Henning team last year, but we needed to have more focus in our pregame. We thought we were kind of losing that, so why not add some elements? So we stole what Coach Borman at Concordia was doing. Not everything that he was doing as far as their pregame, but a lot of those things, and we talked about it the other day, is we play a lot of one-on-one, two-on-two, three-on-three in our practices, working on our actions. We don't have a continuity type of offense. There is some structure to it, but we've kind of gotten away from that because these guys have really learned who needs to get the basketball. And we talk about it a lot in practice. They understand where it needs to go. And so why not take those things? And one thing that we emphasized, we went to the Gopher game on Monday, we haven't been playing in balance. We make a lot of really poor decisions because we're out of balance. And we kind of talked about that yesterday and we do it, we call it Nova passing, where we're just working on getting to the paint, not just flipping the ball out, but getting to 2 feet, overemphasizing, pivoting, passing, finding a window and kicking it out. And
Villanova,
yeah,
for those that don't catch that.
yeah,
Jay Wright, very well known for his everything off 2 feet. And now you watch Jalen Brunson for the Knicks and you see it in the NBA. So
exactly. And it's no secret. And we just talked about it yesterday. It's just fundamentals. If you think that's boring, you're missing the whole point.
right.
That's when you really understand, and I use Mike and drill as an example before the game yesterday, guys. It's and if that's boring, then you're missing the point of our fundamentals. And we emphasize playing off of two, and we still need to get better at that. But so why not take our pre-practice or pre-game, excuse me, and make it useful, something that applies to what we do in games.
Yeah. I know you got a tough upcoming schedule. The Heart of Lakes Conference, one of the best 2A conferences in the state of Minnesota. And I know as a coach, you're game to game. I'm not going to ask you anything too far down the road. But if you had to look at your team and say, we got one thing to clean up, what would be that thing you're focused on right now in the next few weeks?
Well, offensively, I think it's still going to be it's decision making. Taking care of the basketball is one thing that so getting to how we do things, and we started this 3 years ago when Adam started as my ninth grade coach. Coach Beachy, Jensen Beachy, perm grad, now coaching at DGF, left. So Adam moved up, and then now Justin Hogan, who is a DGF guy, wife teaches in Hawley, coaches in Barnesville. So he got a bunch of different things going on there. But what Coach really emphasizes is if we turn the ball over, we don't even get an opportunity for a shot. So it's decision making, playing off of two, offensively, defensively. We're going to probably add a couple of different things coming up here. You saw some things that we just started doing over Christmas break with some non-conference, non-section opponents that worked really well, just disguising defenses. I thought we did that really well yesterday against Howard Lake Waverly. So offensively, playing off of two, defensively, we still got to get better in the half court too. I mean, come postseason, because we're undersized, we still have to. Rebounding is challenging for us. Even we talked about yesterday is not if you can grab the rebound, grab it. Otherwise, if you just are able to tip it, give your teammate an opportunity. Just little things like that just detail stuff on both sides of the ball that lead to extra opportunities. Obviously, the more opportunities you can get, you're going to put more points on the board, and the more opportunities you can take away from the other team, you're going to hopefully allow them to score less. So not a great maybe answer for you, but it's just really simple stuff. We try to keep it simple and strong. So
I mean, that's something I feel like you and I maybe had this conversation many years ago, but the fundamentals, the simple things of basketball get done at every level, and there's a reason for it. I mean, I remember going to Gopher practices when Richard Pitino was the coach, and I'd be like, "Oh, they're doing the same stuff we are."
Hmm.
And if you go to an NBA practice, a lot of times they're doing very similar stuff. Maybe not quite as team oriented, like but it is a simple game at its core, and it's who can do those simple things the best for the longest periods of time.
100%. I mean, it's going down to the coaches clinic this last fall. St. Cloud State head coach was one of the speakers, and it was in the evening, and he had a smaller crowd, but I think some of those speakers are the best because they're more engaging. It gets to be on a more personal level, and they still do monkey in the middle. You know, where you got two offensive guys,
Yeah,
the defender in the middle, and they're
pass fakes.
yeah, it's working on pressure, and it's not just the offensive drill, but you're working on ball pressure, you're working on closing out, just little simple things like that, and that's
Yeah,
Division 2. So
right.
it's and all the way down to my fourth grade son, which we should probably do that drill more. But you all the way to teaching kids to hold how to hold the basketball. You know,
Yeah,
it's really simple.
yeah. Um, Most of the listeners I think of this are probably in the metro area. If maybe provide some like teams to watch, or like may not even be in double A, but like who in your area, northwestern Minnesota, really exciting players, teams, coaches that you really love.
Yeah, so I'll start with our conference first of all, and it'll kind of bleed over into our section. So Pelican Rapids, who we lost to last year, in the section championship, actually bumped down to Class Single A. They're tough.
Mhm.
They've got a kid going to Concordia University, or what is it? Yeah, the Golden Bears.
St. Paul.
Yep, in
Yep.
St.
Yep.
Paul. Actually played football against his dad. He's from
Oh,
DGF originally. Jack Welch is his name. 6'7", 6'8" kid. He's a big man, but he's gotten improved his game from the outside. He's gotten stronger. He played football this year. He was a see. So my guys, we're kind of a big football school. I got to take weight off my guys, and they transform their bodies. You know, it takes some time to do that. Where I remember talking to Coach Gullingsrud last year, he had to put weight on him because he was a cross country runner.
okay.
They've got him. They've got Miguel Torres, who is a 6'3" wingman who can shoot the basketball, can shoot the lights out. They've got some good guards. They moved down to Single A, but they're tough in conference. We got them next week, I think next Friday at home. So they're going to be fun to watch. We were able to steal one at Perm a couple weeks ago. Perm's going to be tough. Our conference, you think you lose a lot of kids from every team, but it's going to be a really highly competitive conference. Perm, DGF, who we lost to by 9 or 10 earlier this year, they just beat Glencoe Silver Lake last night in a good basketball game. I haven't had a chance to watch that. I don't want to forget it. I don't want to short anybody. Breckenridge is tough. They're not in our section, but conference. Always a tough place to play. We lost to them 2 weeks ago. Didn't that was probably that was after coming off a really high game after beating Perm at Perm. Then we got to travel to Breckenridge, lost by 3. They're in a 6A, same as Pelicans, so
Yeah.
that section is loaded.
And Henning.
Henning is in
That's
there. I
a
mean, and Underwood's got a good team. Coach Shebek down there. Chatted with him a little bit this morning through
Ellen.
text. Yeah, Kellen, the
Oh,
banker. So he's a
yeah,
banker that's
yeah.
coaching. Got to know him. Our both our his youngest, I think, is Leighton. Is an eighth grader, and we played
Okay.
AAU together. My oldest Carter, they played. Holly's going to be tough. I mean, I could talk about our conference.
Yeah.
East Grand in our section is probably the favorite. They get
Okay.
two returning really really good guards, the McDonald kid and I can't remember the other kid right offhand. But East Grand is tough. Osakis moved into our section. I haven't had a chance to see them. Staples now moved over, so we've got 14 teams in our section.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a real dogfight, really.
Yeah. I think of the Heart of Lakes similarly to the Hiawatha. I think that's the one with Lake City and
Okay, yeah,
Zumbrota, and like there's like 5 teams that are just like, these teams are awesome. And Pelicans had runs in the state tournament with was it Storston? Was that his name?
Yep, Titan when they went and
Titan,
had
and
that
then
undefeated season. Well, one of the best
Perham.
experiences. Don't you remember
Yeah,
that? We watched them and Bram play in the
yeah.
semifinals. We hopped in a taxi, went over to the Metrodome, and we watched the
Up for the
regional. Don't you remember
regional,
that?
yeah,
Georgetown,
with
Villanova,
Florida,
Florida. They won the championship that
BC.
year in Boston College.
That was the same.
That's
God, that was
insane.
fun.
That was one
Fun
of the
times.
greatest days of basketball of my life.
Oh, for sure. And that Bram team, that they must have had that youngest Dolman kid, right?
They had both of them. I think Isaiah was
Oh,
playing too. I think
oh,
Isaiah was a senior, and
and Noah.
Noah was a sophomore at that.
Wow. And then Perham obviously has had. I think Beachy was on a state championship team or
Yeah, they just
state
had.
tournament
I
team.
think they just had a 15-year reunion when they won their state championship.
Wow.
So
Time flies, man.
yeah, it does. It's crazy.
Sweet. Well, this was great. I again totally appreciate you coming on. It was great to see you, great to talk to you. Lots of good information for the listeners on books and philosophy and culture. I just think that's it's so important, and connecting to kids is should be the number one reason people
Well,
coach.
yeah, that's got to be the why. I mean, yeah,
Right.
everybody wants to win and everybody's competitive, but everybody's got their own philosophy, and I'm not going to tell somebody how to do theirs. And this is what's worked for me and what's worked for us, and it's just makes it much more enjoyable. So
Yeah. Well, good luck the rest of the way. Good luck in the Heart of Lakes conference, and we'll be following you and the Barnesville Trojans the rest of the way.
well, I appreciate it. It should be we're getting kind of to that middle part of the season, and we're gonna, it's we kind of divide the season up into thirds. We had, we're 8 games in now. These next 8, we're gonna keep implementing our philosophies and our strategies, and by the end of January, we're gonna have a pretty good idea of where we're at, and hopefully we're in that mix. I think we will. I like the guys in our locker room, their work ethics and what they bring to the table, and who knows? We're gonna do the best we can, and hopefully we stay healthy and be in there at the end of February, beginning of March.
One team to watch, easy team to root for. Matt, thanks again for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
All right, sticking with the prep discussion as we move over to my teams of the week. So let's start in Class A. This week I have the Henning Hornets, currently 7-0, ranked in state. They got a couple of big wins, one over Pelican Rapids, a key section win for them, and then they also got a thrilling 75-70 win over much larger school Fergus Falls on the 31st. So Henning Hornets undefeated so far. I think depending on if you're looking at pace setter or strip varsity, they're usually in the top 2 or 3 teams in the state in Class A. Double A, the Belle Plaine Tigers, high scoring outfit. If you get a chance to watch them, they're averaging over 90 points a game, I think, last I saw. Ranked number 1 in Double A, undefeated, beat a much larger school in Marshall, 82-69 on New Year's Eve. So Belle Plaine is my Double A team of the week. The Richfield Spartans are my Class 3A team of the week. I saw them up close and personal as they took down De La Salle in a really thrilling, hotly contested game at Richfield on Saturday the 3rd. Richfield undefeated so far, knocked off Minnehaha Academy earlier over the break as well. So they've solidified themselves for sure in the top status of 3A teams. Totino is still probably number 1. Just Totino's losses have come against some pretty tough 4A competition, but Richfield, De La Salle, and Totino Grace all seem to be at the top of the 3A class. Class 4A, I chose the Tartan Titans. They are undefeated on the year. They've beaten Hopkins. They beat Maple Grove over the holiday break, 68-61. Titans just keep winning, and they play tough defense. Mark Clinsborn, their head coach, has been there a long time. He is a great coach, and those guys play super hard. They got some really good players to to watch as well, including KJ Wilson. On the collegiate side in the Northern Sun Conference, my team of the week this week is the Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs. They're 10-4 overall, 6-2 in the NSIC on the north side of that league. They're holding opponents to a conference best 69.1 points per game. Noah Paulson, senior from Duluth East, averaging 21 points a game over his last 4, including 26 on 11 of 14 shooting in the win over Bemidji State. And in the MIAC, I chose the St. Olaf Olies for my team of the week. They've won 2 straight. They got a 69-66 win over North Central. And then January 3rd, they toppled crosstown rival Carleton 79-70 to reclaim bragging rights in Northfield. Balanced attack for the Olies. Huge game coming up on the 7th against Gustavus. So that's the show today. Lots to talk about. Obviously, a heavy emphasis on the prep game and the high school scene here with my interview with Matt Askegaard and the teams of the week this week as well. Got a big first week of January for most people with kids going back to school. The college basketball conference games really start to heat up. They did this weekend, and it's only going to continue. The Gophers host Iowa. I believe it's Tuesday night. The Wolves have a tough schedule coming up, so we'll be talking more. And just to give you a little preview, next Sunday, join me with Andrew Dukowitz over on the Hitting the Hardwood Missing Wolves podcast, as I'll be doing a post-game breakdown of the Wolves versus the San Antonio Spurs Sunday, January 11th. But appreciate you listening. Make sure you follow. Make sure you leave comments. With that, have a great week. This has been the Splash City Basketball Podcast.